Commander Velcros stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Behind him stretched a fleet of 3,000 warships. Each vessel carried enough firepower to burn a planet's surface clean of life. The Zalthari Empire had used this fleet to conquer 164 worlds. Today would be number 165. The target was a small blue planet called Earth. It orbited a yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. Early scans showed the planet had life, cities, and technology. The electromagnetic signals suggested they had discovered radio waves and perhaps basic computers. Nothing that would pose a threat to the mighty Zalthari. Velcros looked at the data screens with satisfaction. This would be an easy conquest. The humans probably had chemical rockets at best. Maybe a few satellites orbiting their world. They would surrender quickly once they saw the size of the invasion fleet. Most species did. Sub-Commander Thane approached from the weapons station. He was Velcros's most trusted officer, a veteran of 60 campaigns. "Commander, we are approaching the outer edge of their system. Shall I activate defense protocols?" Velcros nodded. "Standard procedure. Shields up, weapons ready. Scan for any military installations or defense platforms." The fleet moved past the frozen outer planets of the Sol system. Sensors swept through the darkness, searching for threats. But the readings confused Thane. He checked his instruments twice, then a third time. "Commander, I am detecting nothing. No defense satellites, no patrol ships, no weapon platforms, nothing at all." Velcros frowned. "They must have something. Check again." Thane ran the scans once more. "Still nothing, sir. The system appears completely undefended. I am picking up the planet itself and some natural satellites, but no artificial structures beyond the planet's surface." This was unusual. Every spacefaring civilization built defenses. Even primitive ones put satellites in orbit to watch for dangers. But Earth's space was empty, silent, as if humanity had never left their planet's surface. "Perhaps we caught them early," Velcros said. "Before they expanded into space. That makes our task easier." The fleet continued toward Earth. Velcros reviewed the battle plans. First, they would destroy any orbital infrastructure. Second, they would eliminate military bases on the surface. Third, they would broadcast the surrender terms. Most species gave up after seeing the first demonstration of Zalthari power. Far below, deep inside a mountain in North America, Commander Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet approach. He sat in a quiet room filled with display screens. The technology around him would seem impossible to most civilizations, yet it all ran silently, using almost no power. Jake was 42 years old. He had gray hair starting at his temples and calm blue eyes. He wore simple clothes, a blue shirt, and comfortable pants. Nothing about him suggested he was military. In fact, humanity no longer had a traditional military. They had not needed one for 300 years. Next to Jake sat Lisa Chen, a communications specialist. She was younger, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. She monitored the incoming signals from the alien fleet. "They are scanning us," she said quietly. "Standard military sweeps. They are looking for weapons and defenses." "What are they finding?" Jake asked. "Exactly what we want them to find. Cities, roads, power plants. All the signatures of a normal industrial civilization. Nothing to alarm them." Jake nodded. "Good. Let them think we are simple. Let them think we are weak." Another observer, Ben Carter, sat at a different station. He was tracking the fleet's energy signatures. 3,000 ships, he said, each one capable of destroying a continent. They are not taking any chances. "They never do," Jake replied. "How many worlds have they conquered?" "According to the historical data we pulled from their communications, this is their 165th campaign." Lisa looked at Jake. "Should we send a message? Let them know we see them?" Jake thought about it. Humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. not preparing for war, but preparing for contact. They knew aggressive species would eventually reach Earth. They knew there would be those who saw humanity as prey. "Send a simple text message," Jake said. "Keep it friendly. Tell them we know they are here." Lisa typed on her console. The message went out instantly, appearing on every ship in the alien fleet. It was written in their own language, translated perfectly. The message read, "Welcome to the Sol System. Please proceed to Earth orbit. We are aware of your arrival." On the Eternal Dominion, Velcros stared at the message. His blood went cold. How did these humans know the Zalthari language? His species had never made contact with Earth before. There should be no way for them to translate so perfectly. And that phrase, "We are aware." Not, "We see you," or "We detected you." Aware. As if they had been watching for a long time. As if they had been expecting this. Thane looked equally disturbed. "Commander, how did they translate our language?" "I do not know," Velcros said. "Run a deep scan of their planet. Look for any technology we might have missed." The scanners swept Earth again, this time at maximum sensitivity. The results came back the same: cities made of concrete and steel, power plants burning fossil fuels, ground vehicles using internal combustion engines, radio towers and cell phone networks. Everything suggested a civilization barely entering the space age. But something was wrong. Velcros could feel it. Species this primitive should be panicking right now. They should be flooding their communications with emergency broadcasts. Their leaders should be trying to contact the fleet, begging for mercy or attempting to negotiate. Instead, there was only that one calm message. And now, silence. Jake watched the alien fleet move closer to Earth. They would reach orbit in about 6 hours. He picked up an old telephone from his desk. It was a strange device to have in such an advanced facility, but Jake liked the feel of it. He dialed a number from memory. A voice answered immediately. "Status?" "They are here," Jake said. 3,000 ships. They will be in position by evening." "Any hostile action yet?" "No. They are still scanning. Still trying to understand what they are seeing." "Good. Maintain observation. Do not engage. Let them make the first move." "Understood," Jake said. He hung up the phone. Lisa looked at him. "Do you think they will actually attack?" "Yes," Jake said. "They have conquered 164 worlds. They believe they are unstoppable. They will demand our surrender, and when we refuse, they will try to destroy us." And then, the Zalthari fleet took position high above Earth. 3,000 warships arranged themselves in a perfect siege formation. From this height, they could strike any target on the planet within seconds. Velcros had used this same formation 164 times before. It had never failed. He studied the planet below. Earth was beautiful in a simple way. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. Green and brown continents broke up the blue. White clouds drifted across the atmosphere. It looked peaceful, innocent. That would change soon. "All ships report ready," Thane said. "Weapons are charged and locked on primary targets. We can begin bombardment on your command." Velcros pulled up the target list. Major cities across the planet. Military bases, industrial centers, government buildings. The first strike would kill approximately 2 billion humans. The survivors would see the power of the Zalthari Empire and surrender immediately. But first, he would give them the chance to submit peacefully. It was standard procedure. Most species chose life over death. "Open all communication channels," Velcros ordered. "Broadcast on every frequency." The communication officer nodded. A few seconds later, he signaled that all channels were open. Velcros spoke clearly. "People of Earth, you are hereby claimed by the Zalthari Empire. You will surrender all weapons and technology. You will prepare for occupation. Your governments will dissolve and accept Zalthari rule. You have 12 of your hours to comply. Resistance will result in total extinction. This is your only warning. The message went out across Earth in every human language. Radio, television, internet, satellite, every possible communication method carried the same ultimatum. Surrender or die. Then Velcros waited. Usually there was panic. Desperate calls from world leaders, frantic attempts to negotiate, fear and chaos spreading across communication networks. Instead, Earth responded in less than 1 minute, the same way as before. A simple text message appearing on every screen in the fleet. Thank you for your message. We respectfully decline. However, you are welcome to land a delegation peacefully if you wish to speak with us. We mean you no harm. Velcros read it 3 times. Decline? They decline? He had just threatened to kill every living thing on their planet. And they declined? This must be a malfunction, he said. Their leaders must not understand the situation. Perhaps they do not believe we are serious, Thane suggested. Should we demonstrate our power? Destroy one city as a warning? Velcros considered it. Then he nodded. Target the smallest population center on the list. Fire 1 mass driver round. That should convince them. Thane turned to the weapons station. He input the targeting coordinates. The city was on an island in the Pacific Ocean. Population 300,000. Small enough to be a warning, large enough to be impressive. Firing solution locked, the weapons officer reported. Mass driver ready. Fire, Thane ordered. Nothing happened. The weapons officer looked confused. He checked his console. Sir, the weapon is not responding. What do you mean not responding? The systems show full power. The targeting computer is active, but when I give the fire command, nothing happens. The weapon simply does not fire. Thane moved to the weapons station himself. He ran diagnostics. Everything showed normal, green lights across the board. But the weapon would not fire. He tried the backup systems. Same result. He tried switching to laser batteries. Nothing. Missile tubes, nothing. Point defense guns, nothing. Every weapon on the ship had become useless. Check the other ships, Velcros said quietly. Thane sent out the query. Responses came back quickly. Every ship in the fleet reported the same problem. 3,000 warships, millions of weapons, all of them functional according to diagnostics, all of them refusing to fire. This is impossible, Thane said. Weapons do not just stop working. There must be some kind of jamming signal, some technology we do not understand. Velcros sat down in his command chair. For the first time in his military career, he felt genuine fear. Not fear of death. Fear of the unknown. Something was happening here that broke every rule of warfare he knew. On Earth, in a small apartment in New York, an old man named Sam Harper watched the news. He was 83 years old. His body was old, but his mind was sharp, sharper than it had ever been, thanks to the consciousness integration treatments he had received 50 years ago. His grandson, Kyle, visited him that morning. Kyle was 12 years old, bright and curious. Grandpa, the news says aliens are here. In orbit. Is that true? Sam nodded. He walked to the window and looked up at the blue sky. Yes, Kyle. They are up there right now. 3,000 ships, all of them built for war. Are they going to hurt us? They want to, Sam said. They threaten to destroy our cities, kill billions of people. They think we are weak. Kyle looked scared. But we are not weak, right? Sam smiled and put his hand on his grandson's shoulder. No, we are not weak, but we are not strong in the way they understand. Come, let me show you something. He led Kyle to a table where a glass of water sat. Watch this, Sam said. He placed his hand near the glass, not touching it. He closed his eyes and concentrated. The water began to move. Not because Sam was touching it, not because of any machine. The water itself chose to move, responding to Sam's quiet request. It rose from the glass in a smooth column, hung in the air for a moment, then settled back down. Kyle's eyes went wide. How did you do that? I asked, Sam said simply. I asked the water to move, and it agreed. That is what we learned, Kyle. 300 years ago, we learned to ask instead of force. We learned to listen to what the universe wants instead of demanding it obey us. And the aliens do not know how to do this? No. They still use force. They build weapons that force metal to explode. They use energy to force matter to break apart. Everything they do is about forcing the universe to bend to their will. What happens when they try to force us? Sam looked back out the window. They will learn that the universe does not like being forced, and when you ask nicely, the universe becomes your ally. In orbit, Velcros made a decision. If technology would not work, he would use biology. The Zalthari were strong warriors. Each soldier could fight 10 humans hand-to-hand. He would send ground forces. Prepare dropships, he ordered. We will deploy 1 million soldiers to the surface. If weapons technology fails, we will take this planet the old way. 500 dropships launched from the fleet. They carried the best warriors the Empire had. Each one wore armor and carried kinetic weapons, simple rifles that used springs and compressed air instead of electronics. If the humans could disable advanced weapons, maybe simple mechanical ones would still work. The dropships entered Earth's atmosphere. The crews expected anti-aircraft fire, missiles, energy weapons, fighter craft. Instead, they saw something strange. Navigation systems lit up with guidance vectors, but not warning vectors or targeting locks. These were helpful directions, showing them where to land safely, as if Earth was inviting them down. "What is happening?" one pilot asked over the communication channel. "I do not know," another replied, "but our systems are being guided to a landing zone. Coordinates show a flat plain in the middle of a continent." "Should we resist? Change course?" "No," came the reply from the command ship. "Follow the guidance. We will land and establish a beachhead." The 500 dropships followed the guidance vectors. They landed in a vast open plain in Kansas. The area was empty of buildings or people, just grass and sky, perfect for deploying a military force. The ships landed smoothly. Hatches opened. 1 million Zalthari warriors emerged into Earth's atmosphere for the first time. They formed battle ranks, weapons ready. Some carried rifles, others carried blades and staffs. All of them were ready to fight. They expected to see human armies waiting, tanks and artillery, aircraft overhead, thousands of soldiers in defensive positions. Instead, they saw one person. A single human woman stood alone in the middle of the plain. She wore simple clothes. Blue pants that humans called jeans. A light jacket. Her hair was brown and pulled back in a simple style. She looked to be in her 30s. She carried no weapons. She wore no armor. She simply stood there, calm and relaxed, as if meeting a million alien warriors was the most normal thing in the world. Velcros descended from his command ship with Thane beside him. They walked across the grass toward the human woman. Their guards followed, hands on weapons. When they got close, the woman smiled. "Welcome to Earth," she said in perfect Zalthari. "My name is Nicole Grant. I am a teacher from Denver. I volunteered to meet you today." Velcros stopped 10 feet away from her. "I am Commander Velcros of the Zalthari Empire. We have conquered 164 worlds. We have killed trillions. What makes you think one unarmed human can stand against us?" Nicole's smile never faded. "I am not here to stand against you, Commander. I am..." The change was not violent. There were no explosions or flashing lights. It was gentle, like opening your eyes after a long sleep. But what Velcros saw made his mind struggle to understand. The grass beneath his feet was not just grass. Each blade was connected to every other blade through threads of light he could not quite see, but somehow knew were there. The threads ran through the ground, connecting to trees in the distance, to the soil itself, to the air above. Everything was linked in a web of consciousness. And the cities. Velcros looked toward the horizon where his scanners had shown a human city. What he saw now was nothing like the concrete and steel his technology had detected. The buildings were alive. They grew from the ground like trees, but shaped by intention rather than random growth. They breathed. They shifted slightly, adjusting to the needs of the people inside. Above Earth, the sky was not empty. There was a structure there, vast beyond comprehension. It wrapped around the entire planet like a shell made of woven light and matter. It was beautiful and delicate, like a soap bubble. But Velcros somehow knew it was stronger than any armor his empire had ever created. "What is this?" he whispered. Nicole stood calmly beside him. "This is Earth as it truly is. What your scanners detected was just the surface. We let you see what we wanted you to see. Simple technology, primitive power sources, nothing threatening, but underneath, we are something very different." Thane had dropped to his knees. His warrior training could not prepare him for this. How? How is this possible? 300 years ago, we discovered something, Nicole said. We learned that consciousness is not separate from matter. Every atom, every particle, every wave of energy has awareness. Not like our awareness, but awareness nonetheless. And when you learn to communicate with that awareness, when you ask instead of force, reality becomes something very different. Velcros looked at his own hands. His armor suddenly seemed crude, a shell of dead metal held together by force and chemistry. He could see now that every atom in the armor was tired, strained by being forced into shapes it did not naturally want to hold. Your weapons did not fail, Nicole continued. They chose not to work. We sent a simple request through the quantum field. We asked the atoms in your weapons to rest. We explained that firing would cause harm, and the atoms agreed. They decided not to participate in violence. This is madness, Velcros said, but his voice was weak. Matter does not choose. It obeys physical laws. Matter follows patterns, Nicole corrected gently. But at the quantum level, particles are always choosing which pattern to follow. They collapse into specific states based on observation and intention. We simply learn to be part of that conversation. She gestured toward the plain around them. Look at your soldiers, Commander. Really look. Velcros turned. His 1,000,000 warriors stood in perfect ranks, but he could see now that their weapons were struggling. The metal wanted to return to ore. The springs wanted to unwind. The ammunition wanted to become its base elements again. Only the soldiers' will kept the weapons together, and that will was weakening as the weapons themselves pleaded to rest. We could destroy you, Velcros said. It was not a threat, just a statement, desperate to hold on to something he understood. No, Nicole said simply. You could not. Even if your weapons worked, even if you fired every weapon in your fleet at Earth, we would simply ask the energy to go elsewhere. The explosions would bloom in space, harming nothing. We do not use shields that block force. We ask force to redirect itself. A younger Zalthari officer approached. His name was Kren, and he was a scientist as well as a soldier. But this violates thermodynamics, conservation of energy, basic physics. Nicole smiled. It honors those laws perfectly. We do not create or destroy energy. We do not break physical rules. We ask matter and energy to follow different paths within those rules. Every particle wants to find its lowest energy state. We help them find it in ways that serve life instead of death. She knelt down and touched the grass. Watch. The grass around her hand began to grow. Not fast like time-lapse photography, but at a visible pace. Blades lengthened, new shoots emerged, flowers bloomed, all without any visible machinery or technology. I asked the grass to grow, Nicole explained. I offered it sunlight from the air, nutrients from the soil, and water from moisture. The grass wanted to grow anyway. I just helped coordinate all the elements it needed. Velcros felt his certainty crumbling. His empire had conquered 164 worlds through superior technology and ruthless tactics. But this was neither technology nor tactics. This was something entirely outside his understanding. "How did you learn this?" he asked. "Through pain," Nicole said, standing up. 300 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Nuclear war, biological weapons, environmental collapse. We were dying as a species. And in that moment of desperation, a child discovered the key. She began walking slowly, and Velcros found himself following. His guards came too, but they moved uncertainly now. Everything they had believed about reality was breaking apart. "Her name was Emma," Nicole continued. "She was 7 years old and dying of radiation poisoning. Her doctor could not help her. Medicine could not help her. So she did something simple. She asked her body to heal, not commanded it, not forced it, just asked, with complete honesty and without fear. And her body listened. They walked past groups of Zalthari soldiers. The warriors watched their commander with confusion and fear. The doctor who treated her was named Ryan Pierce. He spent the rest of his life studying what Emma had done. He called it conscious resonance, the ability to resonate your consciousness with the consciousness that exists in all matter. Not to control it, but to communicate with it. "And your entire civilization learned this?" Thane asked. He had recovered enough to stand and follow. "Not all at once," Nicole said. "It took generations. Some people learned quickly, others never developed the ability, but we changed our society to support it. We stopped forcing the universe to obey us. We started asking, and slowly, reality began to cooperate." She stopped and turned to face Velcros directly. "Do you know why your empire keeps conquering? Why you cannot stop?" Velcros said nothing. "Because you are afraid," Nicole said softly. "You believe the universe is hostile. You believe if you are not the strongest, you will be destroyed. So you destroy others first. You have won 164 times, and each victory makes you more afraid, not less. Because now you know there are 164 civilizations that hate you." The words hit Velcros harder than any weapon could, because they were true. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Nothing," Nicole said. "We want nothing from you. We do not demand tribute or surrender. We do not want your technology or your territory. We simply want you to understand that there is another way." "And if we attack anyway?" Kren asked. "If we try to destroy you with our bare hands?" Nicole looked sad. "Then you would fail, and you would be unhappy, and we would be sad. Your bodies are made of atoms, too. If you tried to hurt us, those atoms would resist, not because we control them, but because they would sense the discord. Violence creates quantum dissonance. Harmony creates quantum coherence. The universe prefers coherence." She raised her hand, and a butterfly landed on it. The insect was beautiful, with blue and gold wings. This butterfly's ancestors were nearly extinct 300 years ago. Pesticides and habitat loss. But when we learned to ask plants to grow in harmony with insects, when we learned to create buildings that served both humans and nature, the butterflies came back. Not because we forced them, because we created conditions where they wanted to exist. The butterfly flew away. Nicole watched it go. "That is what we offer you, Commander. Not defeat, not surrender. Just a different question. Instead of asking how you can conquer, ask how you can coexist. Instead of forcing matter to obey, ask it to cooperate." Velcros looked at his fleet in orbit above. 3,000 ships, trillions of tons of metal and ceramics, weapons that could sterilize planets, all of it useless here. "I need to think," he said quietly. "Of course," Nicole said. "We have prepared quarters for you and your officers. Comfortable places where you can rest and consider. Take as much time as you need. We are not going anywhere. You would let us stay after we threatened to kill you all? You were following your nature, Nicole said. A nature shaped by fear and isolation. We do not blame the storm for bringing rain. We just build roofs. You cannot harm us, Commander. So we have nothing to fear from you. And without fear, there is room for understanding. Over the next 3 days, Velcross and his senior officers stayed on Earth. They were shown universities where humans learned to speak with fundamental forces. They visited hospitals where diseases were healed by asking cells to repair themselves. They saw farms where plants grew in patterns that fed both humans and wildlife. And slowly, the Zalthari began to understand. They were not looking at technology, they were looking at evolution. Humanity had evolved beyond the need to force reality. They had become partners with the universe, instead of conquerors of it. On the third evening, Velcro stood on a hill overlooking a human city. The buildings glowed softly with bioluminescent light. No electricity needed. The structures themselves chose to glow, helping the humans inside see. Nicole joined him on the hill. She said nothing, just stood beside him watching the city. "We cannot go back," Velcros said finally. "My empire will expect conquest. If I return empty-handed, they will remove me from command, probably execute me." On the fourth day, Nicole took Velcros to meet the Council of Voices. This was the closest thing Earth had to a government. 12 people who helped coordinate global decisions. They did not rule. They did not command. They simply listened and helped humanity speak with one voice when needed. The council met in Geneva, in a building that appeared to be made of living wood. The walls breathed slowly, drawing in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. Velcros could see the wood adjusting its density to support the roof, strengthening beams where stress was highest, thinning where support was not needed. Inside, the 12 council members sat in a circle. They ranged in age from a young woman who looked 20 to an old man who appeared to be over 100. Nicole introduced Velcros to Chris Walker, who served as the council's primary speaker this year. Chris was 70 years old. He had kind eyes and gray hair. He wore simple clothes like everyone else Velcros had met. No uniform, no symbols of power, just a comfortable shirt and pants. "Welcome." "Commander," Chris said, "please sit. Would you like tea?" Velcro sat awkwardly. The chair adjusted beneath him, reshaping itself to fit his different body structure. "You knew we were coming," he said. It was not a question. "We knew someone would come eventually," Chris replied, pouring hot tea from a pot. "The galaxy has many aggressive species. We have been monitoring radio signals from neighboring civilizations for 300 years. We understood that conflict was inevitable. Yet you built no defenses." "We built the greatest defense possible," Chris said, handing Velcros a cup. "We built peace. Not the absence of war, but actual harmony with reality itself. When you exist in harmony, violence becomes impossible. Not because you are weak, but because you are aligned." Velcros sipped the tea. It was unlike anything he had tasted before. The flavor was perfect, as if the tea leaves had understood exactly what he needed. "Nicole told me about the child, Emma, the one who healed herself." Chris nodded. "Emma Chen. She died 40 years ago at the age of 267. Old age, peaceful. But her discovery changed everything. Ryan Pierce, her doctor, spent decades developing her intuitive understanding into something that could be taught." "How does it work?" Velcros asked. "I have seen the effects, but I do not understand the mechanism." Chris thought for a moment. "Have you ever noticed how soldiers in your empire become synchronized? How a well-trained unit moves together without speaking?" "Yes. It is training and discipline." "It is more than that," Chris said. "It is consciousness resonating." When people share intention, their quantum fields align. They become entangled at a subatomic level. This is why armies work, why cultures form, why societies function. Shared consciousness creates shared reality. He set down his teacup. What Ryan discovered is that this resonance is not limited to people. All matter has quantum fields. All particles exist in states of probability until observed, and observation is not passive. Observation is participation. When we observe with intention, we influence which probability becomes real. Velcros felt his skepticism rising again. This sounds like wishful thinking. Matter does not care about our intentions. Does it not? Chris asked. Tell me, Commander, in your own body right now, trillions of cells are making decisions. Should this enzyme activate? Should this protein fold this way or that way? Should this ion channel open? Your cells make millions of choices per second. What guides those choices? Chemistry, biology, physical laws. Yes, but who decides which chemical pathway to follow when multiple pathways are possible? Who decides which quantum state to collapse into when multiple states are available? Velcros had no answer. Chris continued. Your cells decide based on your overall intention. When you are afraid, your cells produce stress hormones. When you are calm, they produce different chemicals. Your consciousness guides your biology. This is not controversial. Every doctor knows this. But you claim to guide matter outside your body. Because there is no outside, Chris said simply. That is the illusion. You breathe air that was inside trees yesterday. You eat food that was sunlight last month. You drink water that was in the ocean last year. Where does your body end and the world begin? They are the same thing, just organized differently. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, Velcros could see gardens where humans and nature existed without separation. When you realize you are not separate from the universe, you can begin to participate in its processes. Not controlling them, participating in them, like joining a conversation rather than shouting orders. Another council member spoke. Her name was Claire Rodriguez. She was 40 and worked as a teacher like Nicole. Commander, may I show you something personal? Velcros nodded. Claire closed her eyes. When I was young, I lost my hearing in an accident. Conventional medicine could not help. The damage was too severe. But my teacher showed me how to ask my body to heal, not forcing it, not demanding it, just asking with complete honesty about what I needed. She opened her eyes. It took 3 years. Every day I would meditate and ask my damaged nerves to repair themselves. I would visualize the healing, not as fantasy, but as genuine communication with my cells. And slowly, they responded. Today, my hearing is perfect. Not because I forced my body to obey, but because I asked and listened when it told me what it needed. What did it need? Velcros asked, genuinely curious now. Patience, trust, support. My body knew how to heal. It just needed my consciousness to stop interfering with panic and fear. When I calmed my mind, my body did what it naturally wanted to do. Return to wholeness. Velcros thought about his own body. He had scars from battles, old injuries that ached, damage he accepted as permanent. Could he heal those wounds? Could his cells be asked to repair themselves? As if reading his thoughts, Chris said, Yes, you could. But it requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to yourself. You see your body as a tool, a machine you use to accomplish goals. We see our bodies as partners, conscious entities we cooperate with. This seems like a very slow way to live, Velcros said, asking permission from atoms, waiting for cooperation. My empire acts decisively. We take what we need. And how is that working for you? Chris asked gently. You have conquered 164 worlds. Are your people happy? Are they at peace? Or are they constantly afraid of the next threat, the next war, the next enemy? Velcros said nothing. because Chris was right. The Empire was held together by fear. Fear of external enemies, fear of rebellion, fear of appearing weak. There was no peace, only the temporary absence of visible war. "We tried your way," Chris said. "For thousands of years, humanity used force. We built weapons. We conquered neighbors. We enslaved the weak. We thought domination was strength, and it nearly killed us all." He sat back down. 300 years ago, we had nuclear weapons that could destroy all life on Earth. We had biological weapons that could make viruses that killed everyone they touched. We had poisoned our air and water. We were months away from total collapse. What stopped you? A little girl asked her cells to heal, Chris said. And in that moment, we realized we had been asking the wrong questions. We had been asking, how can we force the world to serve us? We should have been asking, how can we serve the world so it serves us back? Another council member, an old man named Paul Graham, leaned forward. "Commander, let me ask you something. When you conquer a world, what happens to the people there? They submit or die. And after submission, they work, they produce resources, they join the empire. Are they happy?" Velcros almost laughed. "Happiness is irrelevant. They are conquered. And this is why your empire will eventually fail," Paul said without malice. "You build on suffering. Suffering creates resistance. Resistance requires force to suppress. Force requires energy. Eventually, you will run out of energy or encounter someone stronger. Then your empire will collapse. But our way is different," Chris added. "We build on cooperation. Cooperation creates stability. Stability allows growth. Growth creates abundance. Abundance allows more cooperation. It is a cycle that strengthens itself." Velcros looked around the circle of council members. They were not warriors. They carried no weapons. They commanded no armies. Yet they had defeated his empire without fighting. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "I cannot teach my people what you have taught me. They would think I have lost my mind." "Start small," Nicole suggested. She had been quiet, but now spoke up. "Go back to your empire. Tell them Earth is not worth conquering. Tell them we have no resources they need. That much is true. We grow what we need. We do not mine or harvest like your civilization." And then watch," Chris said. "Watch what happens when you stop conquering. See if the empire collapses as you fear, or if something else becomes possible. You might be surprised." Thane, who had been silent throughout the meeting, finally spoke. "Even if the commander believes you, the empire will not. They will send another fleet, more commanders. Eventually, someone will fly on the seventh day. Velcros made his decision. He stood alone on a beach in what humans called California. The ocean stretched before him, vast and calm. Waves rolled in with steady rhythm. He could feel it now, the pattern Nicole had shown him. The water moving because the moon pulled it. The moon moving because Earth's gravity held it. Earth moving because the sun's mass curved space around it. Everything connected, everything in conversation. Behind him, Thane approached across the sand. "Commander, the fleet is asking for orders. They have been waiting for 6 days. The officers are becoming restless." "I know," Velcros said. "Prepare all ships for departure. We leave in 3 hours." Thane looked relieved. "And our report to the Empire? What shall we tell them about Earth?" Velcros turned to face his second officer. "We will tell them the truth. That Earth possesses technology beyond our ability to counter. That invasion is impossible. That we recommend leaving this system alone. They will ask for details. And we will provide what details we can without revealing the full truth. We will say humans have mastered quantum manipulation, energy redirection, consciousness-based defense systems. All of that is accurate." Thane nodded slowly. "And the deeper truth? What we have learned here about reality itself. That we keep to ourselves, Velcro said. For now. The Empire is not ready to hear it. They would dismiss it as weakness or insanity. But perhaps in time, when others have visited this world and seen what we have seen, the truth will spread. You sound like them now, Thane observed. Patient, willing to plant seeds. Velcros smiled slightly. It felt strange on his face. He had not smiled in years. Perhaps I do. Is that so wrong? I do not know, Commander, but I will follow your lead. They walked back toward the landing site together. Along the way, they passed human families enjoying the beach, children playing in the waves, adults sitting in the sand talking, an old couple walking hand in hand, normal life, peaceful life. Life without fear of invasion or conquest because they had made fear irrelevant. At the landing site, Nicole waited. She had come to say goodbye. So you are leaving, she said. Yes, my fleet cannot remain indefinitely, and I think we have learned all we can for now. Will you come back? Velcros considered the question. I do not know, perhaps, if the Empire allows it, if I survive long enough to make the journey again. Nicole handed him a small object. It was a seed, carefully wrapped in a cloth. This is from a tree we call oak. It takes decades to grow, it lives for centuries. Plant it somewhere on your home world. Care for it. Watch it grow. And remember what you learned here. Velcros took the seed carefully. I will, though I do not know if it will survive in our climate. Then ask it what it needs, Nicole said with a smile. Listen to what it tells you. That is the first lesson. Everything else follows from that. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. The hardest part is believing it is possible. Once you believe, the doing becomes natural. Velcros looked at the seed in his hand. Such a small thing. Yet humans claimed it held all the information needed to become a massive tree. DNA, they called it. A code written in molecules. But also more than that. Intention, purpose, the desire to grow towards sunlight and sink roots into soil. I have a question, he said. A personal one. Ask. You said consciousness exists in all matter. Does that mean I have consciousness beyond my brain? That my body itself is conscious? Yes, Nicole said. Your cells are conscious. Your organs are conscious. Even your bones and blood are conscious in their own way. They make decisions constantly. Which proteins to build, which repairs to prioritize, how to allocate energy. Your body is not a machine. It is a community of conscious entities cooperating to create you. Then why do we age? Why do we die? If our cells can choose, why do they choose to fail? Nicole's expression became gentle. Because they are tired, Commander. Cells can only divide so many times before the copying errors accumulate. Eventually, they know they are doing more harm than good, so they choose to stop. It is not failure, it is acceptance, knowing when to rest. But you said humans can heal themselves. That woman in the council, Claire. She repaired nerve damage. Repair is different from immortality, Nicole explained. We can guide our bodies to fix specific damage. We can extend our healthy years. Some humans live to 300 or more now, but we do not live forever. We have learned that death is part of the cycle. Without death, there is no room for new life, no space for evolution, no change. So even your advanced civilization accepts death. We accept transformation, Nicole corrected. Death is just transformation from one state to another. The atoms that made up my grandmother are now in trees, in rain, in other people who ate food grown in soil where she was buried. She transformed. She did not disappear. Velcros thought about all the beings he had killed, all the worlds he had conquered. Had he really destroyed anything? Or had he just transformed matter from one pattern to another? And if transformation was inevitable, What did it matter how it happened? But he knew that was wrong thinking. The old thinking. Nicole had said the universe preferred coherence over discord. Death in battle was discord. Death from age after a full life was coherence. The atoms might transform either way, but the path mattered. "I should go," he said finally. "Thank you for showing me this, for not destroying us when you could have." "We could not have destroyed you," Nicole said. "Not without destroying ourselves. Violence against you would create violence within us. We would break our own coherence. That is why peace is not just moral, it is practical. It is the only way to maintain harmony." "I do not know if I can become what you are," Velcros admitted. "I have too much blood on my hands, too many deaths in my past." "Then learn from them," Nicole said. "The past cannot be changed, but the future is still being written. Every moment, reality is choosing which probability to collapse into. Your choices influence that collapse. Choose differently, and different futures become possible." She placed her hand briefly on his arm. The touch was light, but Velcros felt something pass between them. Not information exactly, more like resonance. For just a moment he felt what she felt. Connection to everything. The ocean, the sand, the air, the distant stars. All of it one great organism breathing together. Then the feeling faded, but the memory remained. "Goodbye, Nicole Grant," Velcros said formally. "If I survive what comes next, perhaps we will meet again." "I hope so, Commander." "Travel safely." The Zalthari fleet departed 3 hours later. 500 dropships carried 1 million soldiers back to orbit. The warships broke formation and began the long acceleration out of the Sol system. On every ship, warriors and crew members talked quietly about what they had seen. Some dismissed it as tricks, technology they did not understand. Humans were clever, they said. They had fooled the fleet into thinking they were harmless. Better to leave them alone until the Empire could develop countermeasures. Others were deeply troubled. They had felt something on Earth, something that challenged everything they believed about strength and power. These soldiers would think about Earth for years to come. Some would dream about it. A few would eventually understand. On the flagship, Velcros sat in his private quarters. The seed Nicole gave him rested on his desk in a small container of water. He had asked the ship's botanist to analyze it. The botanist reported it was genetically similar to trees on several conquered worlds. It could probably survive on the Zalthari homeworld with proper care. Velcros picked up the container and held it up to the light. Inside, the seed had already begun to change. A small white root emerged from one end. The seed was choosing to grow. Even in this strange environment, in water from an alien ship, the seed felt safe enough to begin its transformation into a tree. "I will plant you," Velcros said to the seed. He felt foolish talking to it. But Nicole said consciousness existed everywhere. If that was true, maybe the seed could hear him. Maybe it would appreciate knowing it was welcome. The root grew a millimeter longer as he watched. Thane entered the quarters without knocking. In the military, privacy was minimal for all ranks. "Commander, we are preparing the report to send to the Empire. What should we include about our casualties?" "We had no casualties," Velcros said. "Exactly. The Empire will wonder why. Why did we not attack? Why did we not test their defenses more thoroughly?" Velcros set down the seed container. "We will tell them we conducted extensive reconnaissance, that human defenses operate on principles we do not yet understand, that standard weapons proved ineffective. We will recommend assigning research teams to study quantum consciousness technology. That will keep the scientists busy for decades. And if they order us back? If they demand we take the fleet and try again? Then we will obey orders," Velcros said. "But we will also share what we learned with every officer willing to listen. We will plant seeds of understanding. Some will grow, others will not. That is how change happens. Slowly, patiently. Thane looked at the small plant beginning to emerge from the seed. "You have changed, Commander. Have I? Or have I simply seen something that was always true, but I was too blind to notice?" "Perhaps both." Velcros stood and walked to the window. Earth was shrinking behind them, a blue marble against the black. Soon it would be just another star among millions. But he would remember what he saw there, what he felt there. The universe was not a battlefield. It was a conversation. And for the first time in his life, Velcros wanted to listen more than he wanted to speak. 2 months later, the fleet returned to the Zalthari home world. Velcros delivered his report to the High Command. They were skeptical, suspicious, but they could not deny the facts. 3,000 ships had approached Earth. All weapons failed, no casualties on either side. The humans claimed to use consciousness to manipulate reality. The High Command debated for weeks. Some wanted to send a larger fleet. Others wanted to develop new weapons designed specifically to counter quantum consciousness technology. A few suggested leaving Earth alone, as Velcros recommended. In the end, they chose to wait, to observe, to send intelligence gatherers instead of warriors. It was not peace, but it was not immediate war either. It was the space between where new possibilities could grow. Velcros was reassigned to a research division. Not a punishment exactly, but a removal from active conquest. He did not mind. He had a small garden now on the grounds of his new posting. In that garden, the oak seed from Earth had become a sapling. It was only knee-high, but it was growing. He visited it every day. Sometimes he talked to it, feeling less foolish each time. He told it about Earth, about Nicole and Chris and the humans who had shown him a different way. The tree continued to grow. And in the Empire, among the millions of warriors and workers and citizens, a few people began to talk quietly about consciousness, about resonance, about asking instead of forcing. The ideas spread slowly, like roots growing underground where no one could see them. Nicole was right. Change happened through seeds. Plant them, care for them, and wait. Eventually, something new would grow. On Earth, Jake Morrison watched the Zalthari fleet depart on his monitors. Lisa Chen sat beside him, making notes for the historical record. "Do you think he understood?" Lisa asked. "Some of it," Jake said. "Enough to make a difference. Maybe not in his lifetime, but in time. And if they come back with more ships? More weapons?" "Then we show them again," Jake said calmly. "As many times as necessary. We have patience. We have time. Eventually, they will all learn what Velcros learned, that the universe does not reward violence. It rewards harmony." Outside the mountain facility, the sun set over the Rockies. Birds sang in trees that remembered being seedlings 100 years ago. Wind moved through valleys that had been carved by glaciers millennia past. Everything moved in patterns, rhythms, cycles, and humanity, having learned to dance with those rhythms instead of fighting them, continued their quiet watch over the stars. Teachers waiting for students, gardeners tending a garden that included all possible futures. In the silence of those who no longer needed to shout, new worlds were being born, and a way to destroy you. "Perhaps," Chris agreed. "But each commander who comes will see what you have seen. Each one will learn what you have learned. Some will reject it, but some will accept it. And those who accept it will change. They will become teachers themselves, not through conquest, but through example." "You are very patient," Velcros observed. "We have learned to be," Chris said. "We spent thousands of years being impatient, trying to force quick solutions. It never worked. So now we plant seeds and trust them to grow. You are a seed, Commander. What you choose to grow into is up to you." Velcros stood. The meeting was over. He had learned more in 4 days than in 40 years of military service, and he had no idea what to do with that knowledge. As he left the building, He looked up at the sky. His fleet was still there. 3,000 ships, waiting for orders, waiting for him to lead them to victory or defeat. But victory and defeat seemed like the wrong words now. They implied opposition, competition, war. Maybe there were other words, other possibilities, other ways to move through the universe than conquest. He would have to find out. Then, do not return empty-handed, Nicole said. Take knowledge instead of territory, understanding instead of slaves. They will not accept that. Perhaps not immediately. But seeds take time to grow, Commander. You have seen something here that no Zalthari has seen before. That knowledge will change you, and you will change others, not through force, but through example. Velcros closed his eyes. He could feel it now, very faintly. The connection Nicole had talked about. The atoms in his body were not separate from the atoms in the air, the ground, the distant stars. They were all part of one great conversation, vibrating in patterns that created the illusion of separate things. I am afraid, he admitted. Good, Nicole said. Fear means you understand the significance of what you have learned. Now you must decide what to do with that fear. Let it drive you to more conquest? Or let it teach you to seek connection instead? She placed her hand on the ground. The grass around her fingers began to hum, a sound too low to hear but felt in the bones. The universe is not your enemy, Commander. It never was. Here to talk with you, and perhaps to show you something you have never seen before. We do not want to talk, Velcro said. We want your surrender. I understand, Nicole said. But before you make any decisions, would you like to see what Earth really is? Not what your scanners show you, but what actually exists here. Thane stepped forward. Is this a trick? Some kind of trap? No trap, Nicole said. Just truth. I am going to show you something, Commander. It might be confusing at first, but I promise you will not be harmed. Before Velcros could respond, the world changed. Jake smiled slightly. And then they will learn something new, something none of their previous victories prepared them for. Ben looked up from his console. The fleet is passing Mars now. They should reach Earth orbit in 5 hours and 40 minutes. Jake settled back in his chair. Then we wait. Humanity has been patient for 300 years. We can be patient for a few more hours. Outside the mountain facility, the world continued as normal. People went to work. Children played in parks. Farmers tended their crops. Nobody panicked because nobody needed to panic. Humanity had long ago stopped fearing violence. They had learned something better than fear. They had learned to listen to the universe itself. And today, the universe would speak to the Zalthari in ways they could never imagine.